My parents have always had a favourite child, and it wasn't me. This isn't some angsty teenage complaint. It's a fact, established over 3 decades of carefully documented evidence. For my 10th birthday, they gave me a remote control monster truck. It was bright red, had massive tyres, and was exactly what my 12-year-old brother Devin had been begging for. When I looked at them, confused, my mother just smiled her placid smile and said, "We thought you two could share." Devin did not share. I'm Rosalind. I'm 32, and I've spent my entire life as an afterthought. While Devin's football trophies lined the mantelpiece, my academic awards were kept in a box in my closet. When it came time for college, my parents sat me down and explained that money was tight, that I'd have to rely on scholarships and loans. 2 years later, they took out a second mortgage to help Devin with a down payment on his first house. Every success I've had, my degree, my career in marketing, the life my husband Lionel and I have built, has been entirely my own, achieved not just without their help, but in spite of their indifference. Last week, I got the promotion I've been working toward for 3 years, Senior Vice President. It came with a corner office, a team of 20, and a bonus that made my eyes water. Lionel, my husband of 5 years, popped a bottle of champagne that cost more than my first car. "We have to celebrate," he said, kissing me. "Properly. I'm talking white sand, blue water, and someone bringing us drinks with little umbrellas in them." The idea took root instantly. A real luxurious, no expenses spared vacation. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe an achievement this big, this undeniable, would finally be enough to earn their pride. Maybe a grand gesture, a gift of pure generosity, could reset the dynamic. So with my laptop open to the stunning website of the Mirador Azure Resort in St. Lucia, I decided to call them. I wanted to do something for them, to thank them in a way that felt meaningful. "Mom," I said, my voice bright, "I have some amazing news." I told her about the promotion. Her reaction was lukewarm, as expected. "Oh, that's nice, dear. You've always been such a hard worker." It was the same tone she used when I told her I'd learned to tie my shoes. "To celebrate," I pushed on, ignoring the familiar sting, "I want to take you and Dad on a vacation, all expenses paid, a week in St. Lucia at a 5-star resort, my treat." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear my dad Donald murmuring something in the background. Then Mom's voice came back, laced with a syrupy sweetness that always set my teeth on edge. "Rosalind, that is so thoughtful, but, well, it just wouldn't feel like a real family vacation without Devin, would it?" My smile froze. I stared at the picture on my screen, an infinity pool blending seamlessly into the Caribbean Sea. "And Amara, of course," she continued, her voice gaining momentum. "And the children. You know how much Max, Mia and Milena would love the beach. It's just so hard for Devin and Amara to afford a trip like that with 3 little ones." You understand? I didn't understand. I understood that my gift, a celebration of my success, was being hijacked in real time. It was no longer about me. It was about making things easier for Devin, the golden child, who at 34 still needed his parents to run interference for him. The request was so audacious, so deeply rooted in their lifelong pattern of favoritism, that I almost laughed. They wanted me to pay for my brother, his wife, and their 3 chaotic children to come on the vacation I was gifting. My parents. To celebrate my achievement. Lionel, sensing the shift in the room, walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. He raised a questioning eyebrow. I gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of my head. "Mum," I said, my voice tight, "that's a lot more people." "Oh, but it would be so wonderful," she chirped, completely oblivious. "All of us together." "A proper family trip. It's the fair thing to do, isn't it? To include everyone? Fairness." The word hung in the air between us, thick with irony. For years I had begged for fairness. I had pleaded for an ounce of the attention, the support, the financial and backing they gave Devin without a second thought. And now she was using that word against me. Something inside me didn't just break, it hardened. It crystallized into a cold, sharp point. I looked at the shimmering pool on the screen, then at my own reflection in the dark glass. The hurt was still there, but it was being rapidly overtaken by a slow-burning fury. I forced a smile I knew she couldn't see. "You're right, Mom. Of course. The whole family should come." The relief in her voice was sickening. "Oh, wonderful! I'll call Devon right now. He'll be thrilled." We said our goodbyes, and I hung up the phone, placing it gently back on the table. The silence in the apartment was absolute. Leonel squeezed my shoulder. "You don't have to do this, Ros," he said softly. I didn't look at him. I just stared at the booking page, at the perfect, serene image of a paradise I had earned. A paradise they were about to invade. "Fine," I whispered to the empty room. "If fairness is what they want, I'll make sure they get exactly what they've earned." The fury didn't fade. It settled into a cold, methodical calm. Leonel watched me as I turned back to my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I clicked off the Mirador Azure booking page and opened a new tab, then another. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I'm planning a family vacation," I said, my voice flat. "A fair one." For the next hour, I worked. First, I booked 2 oceanfront suites at the Mirador Azure for the first week of August. One for me and Leonel, and one for my best friend Samantha, who I planned to invite for part of the trip. I paid for the flights, first class, non-stop. I arranged for a private car service from the airport. I pre-booked a couple's massage at the resort's award-winning spa. Then I opened the other tab. A quick search for budget-friendly hotels St. Lucia yielded a list of places that made my skin crawl. I found the perfect one, the Sea Breeze Inn. The photos were grainy, the colours washed out. Reviews mentioned rustic charm and a persistent scent of bleach and regret. The amenities list included complimentary Wi-Fi, lobby only, and an eco-breakfast. Perfect. I booked 3 rooms, one for my parents, one for Devon and Amara, and one for their 3 children, Max, Mia, and Milena. Then I booked their flights, economy, with a 3-hour layover in Atlanta. Leonel leaned over my shoulder, reading the confirmation email for the Sea Breeze Inn. He let out a low whistle. "Ros, this is elaborate." "They wanted to be included," I said, clicking confirm on a budget shuttle bus service that promised to get them from the airport to their hotel, eventually. He sat on the arm of the couch looking at me, not with judgment, but with genuine concern. "Are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back. This is a declaration of war." "No," I corrected him. "This is a balancing of the books. For 32 years, I've been the understanding one. I've been expected to be happy with less so Devon could have more. Now they're all going to get a taste of what my side of the ledger has felt like." I looked up at him, my eyes pleading for him to get it. "He's right. This is war. But they started it decades ago. I'm just choosing the battlefield." He was quiet for a long moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. He shook his head, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. "Okay, I'm in. But you're handling all communication with your mother." "Deal," I said, feeling a wave of relief. Over the next week, I finalised the plans. I created a group chat and laid out the ground rules, framing them as logistical necessities. To make things easier for a group of 9, I wrote, "I've booked everyone's flights and accommodations separately. It's just too complicated to coordinate otherwise. We'll all arrive on the same day and can meet up for dinner." No one questioned it. Why would they? They were getting a free vacation. A few days later, my mother called, her voice buzzing with excitement. "I just wanted to check in, dear. Devon and Amara are so grateful. They were saying how expensive things are with the kids, you know. I'm not sure you can really appreciate that, not having any of your own." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. The casual, condescending jab landed exactly as she'd intended. The implication was clear. My money, my success, was unearned in some fundamental way because I didn't have the burden of children, unlike her precious son, who apparently deserved a handout for successfully procreating. "It's really no problem, Mom," I said, my voice as smooth as glass. "I'm happy to do it. I want everyone to have a wonderful time." "You are just so gracious, Rosalind," she gushed, "taking on all this extra expense for your brother. It shows such maturity. I could feel the smile spreading across my face, cold and sharp. It was the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. I wanted her to remember this conversation. I wanted her to replay the word gracious in her head while she was staring at a water-stained ceiling, listening to her grandchildren scream in the room next door. She thanked me for being so gracious. I smiled sweetly. I wanted her to choke on that smug gratitude. The weeks leading up to the trip were a masterclass in compartmentalization. To my family, I was the gracious, organised daughter, sending out packing tips and a loose itinerary. To Leonil, I was a woman possessed, checking flight statuses and triple confirming the shuttle bus from hell. The day finally came. Our flight was smooth, filled with champagne and warm nuts. As we descended into St. Lucia, the island emerged from the clouds like a green jewel in a turquoise sea. A man holding a sign with Riley on it met us just outside baggage claim. He took our luggage, handed us chilled bottles of water, and led us to a black luxury sedan with cool leather seats. "Welcome to the Mirador Azur," the driver said, as we pulled up to a grand open-air entrance 20 minutes later. Valets swarmed the car. A woman with a brilliant smile greeted us with 2 flutes of champagne and cool, lavender-scented towels. Our suite was on the top floor. A wall of glass opened onto a private balcony with an uninterrupted view of the ocean. A bottle of rum and a platter of tropical fruit sat on the coffee table. It was paradise. "They should be landing any minute," Leonel said, coming to stand behind me on the balcony. He wrapped his arms around my waist. "You ready for this?" I leaned back against him, taking a sip of champagne. I'd been ready for 32 years. I pictured their arrival. The 7 of them, exhausted from a long travel day with 3 cranky children, crammed into a stuffy shuttle bus with no air conditioning. I imagined them pulling up not to a grand entrance, but to a faded 2-story building with a peeling paint job and a flickering neon sign that read Sea Breeze Inn. My phone rang an hour later, exactly on schedule. It was my mother. "Rosalind?" Her voice was thin, trembling with a mixture of confusion and fury. I could hear my niece, Mia, whining in the background. "There's been a terrible mistake." I put the phone on speaker and set it on the table, taking another calm sip of my drink. Leonel watched me, his expression unreadable. "What's wrong, Mom?" I asked, feigning concern. "This place. This motel. It's dreadful." The man at the desk was rude. "The carpet is stained and our room smells like mildew. Devon's room has a crack right down the window. This can't be right." "Where are you?" "We're at our hotel," I said simply. "Well, what's it called?" "We'll get a taxi and come there. The driver must have brought us to the wrong place." "He didn't, Mum. You're at the Sea Breeze Inn. That's where I booked you." The silence on the other end was profound. I could feel her processing it, the disbelief curdling into outrage. "What are you talking about?" she finally sputtered. "Why would you put your family in a place like this?" "Why aren't you here with us?" This was it. The moment I had been planning for. I let the question hang in the air, savouring it. "I booked our accommodations based on our respective budgets," I said, my voice even and cool. "Or, to be more accurate, based on the investment you and Dad have made in each of us over the years. I got the 5-star, all-inclusive luxury experience. Devon got the reliable, budget-friendly option you always said was good enough for me." It seemed like the fairest way to do it. Her breath hitched. "That is the most hateful, cruel thing I have ever heard." "Is it?" I countered. "You told me this was about fairness, about including everyone. I've included everyone. We're all on the same island, enjoying the same sunshine." "Relax, Mom," I said, a serene smile on my face as I gazed out at the perfect azure water. "You asked for family equality. It's hard to be more equal than this." I ended the call and placed the phone face down on the table. Leonel was looking at me, a mixture of awe and apprehension in his eyes. "Well," he said, breaking the silence. "The first shot has been fired." "This was just the warning shot," I replied, feeling a strange, hollow victory. An hour of silence from their end was followed by a barrage of texts in the group chat, mostly from Amara, complaining about the lack of air conditioning and the questionable state of the complimentary crib they'd been given for 3-year-old Milena. I ignored them. Instead, I sent a single cheerful message to the group. Hope everyone is settling in. I made a dinner reservation for us at 7:30 p.m. at Azure, the restaurant here at our resort. Can't wait to see you all. I knew for a fact that Azure had a strict resort casual dress code and an even stricter guests-only policy. Lionel and I spent the rest of the afternoon by the infinity pool, sipping cocktails. At 7, we went back to our suite to change. I put on a simple but elegant white linen dress, and Lionel wore chinos and a crisp button-down shirt. We looked relaxed, refreshed, and wealthy. We were seated at a prime table on the terrace overlooking the ocean as the sun began to set, when I saw them. The whole chaotic 8 of them. They weren't walking so much as trudging up the long, landscaped path to the restaurant entrance. My parents looked exhausted. Devin's polo shirt was already showing sweat stains at the collar. Amara was trying to wrangle her two, Max and Mia, while my cousin juggled a fussy Milena on her hip. They were a tableau of misery. We watched as a poised hostess in a navy blue dress stepped forward to greet them. I couldn't hear the exchange, but I could see it unfold. The hostess's polite smile never wavered as she gestured vaguely at their shorts and t-shirts. Devin started to argue, his face turning red. My mother wrung her hands. I let it go on for another 30 seconds before I stood up, dabbing my lips with my napkin. "Oh my goodness," I said to Lionel, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "It looks like they're having some trouble." I walked over, my face a perfect mask of concerned surprise. "Is everything all right?" "They won't let us in," Amara hissed, gesturing at the hostess. "She's saying there's a dress code, and that we aren't guests." I turned to the hostess, my expression full of bewildered apology. "Oh, I am so sorry. I'm Rosalind. This is my family. I made the reservation. I had no idea about the policy. I should have checked." The hostess gave me a sympathetic look. "I'm very sorry, Mom, but our policy is firm." My mother looked like she was about to cry. "So what are we supposed to do? The children are starving." I pretended to think for a moment. "Don't worry, I have a backup plan. There's a little local place not too far from here that I read about online. It's supposed to be very authentic. A seafood buffet. We can all go there." Defeated, they had no choice but to agree. We took 2 separate cabs to Captain Jack's Crab Shack, a loud, brightly lit tourist trap with plastic red and white checkered tablecloths that were sticky to the touch. The air hung heavy with the overwhelming smell of fried fish and disinfectant. We found a long table and began the awkward process of getting food. My nieces and nephews, overtired and overstimulated, ran wild, bumping into other patrons. My father was silent, methodically eating a plate of fried shrimp. My mother just pushed food around her plate. Finally, Amara couldn't take it anymore. She set her fork down with a clatter. "I just don't understand this, Rosalind," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This clear division. You and Lionel are in some palace and the rest of us are in a hovel. Now we're eating here. It feels pointed." I took a slow sip of my water, meeting her gaze. "I'm just applying the lessons Mom and Dad taught me my whole life," I said calmly. "You have to earn your upgrades." The table fell silent. Amara's jaw tightened. My mother stared down at her plate. Devin threw his napkin down on his half-eaten food. "You're doing this on purpose," he muttered, his voice low and venomous. I looked at my brother, the golden child, the one for whom the world had always been made easy. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just held his gaze, and I didn't deny it. The next morning, Lionel and I were having coffee on our balcony, watching sailboats drift across the impossibly blue water. The tension from the night before felt a world away. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from the front desk. "Good morning. A woman named Meredith is in the lobby asking for Rosalind. Shall we send her up?" I showed the text to Lionel. He raised an eyebrow. "The Queen is leaving her castle." "No, thank you," I typed back. "Please let her know. I'll meet her at the lobby cafe in 10 minutes. I was not letting her into my sanctuary. This would happen on my turf, but on neutral ground. I found her sitting at a small table, clutching her purse in her lap. She looked smaller here, swallowed by the high ceilings and elegant decor of the resort. I ordered an iced tea from a passing waiter and sat down opposite her. "This has to stop, Rosalind," she began, forgoing any pleasantries. "You are being deliberately unkind, and it's tearing this family apart." "Unkind?" I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Let's talk about unkind, Mum." And then I laid it all out. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke calmly, methodically, as if I were presenting a quarterly report. "When I was 10, you gave me a monster truck for my birthday because Devin wanted it. When I won the state science fair, you missed the ceremony to take Devin to a football scrimmage. You and Dad told me there was no money for my college tuition. Then 2 years later, you co-signed a loan for Devin's brand new SUV because his old one was unreliable. For my entire life, my needs have been secondary. My accomplishments have been footnotes. I wasn't being treated as a daughter. I was being treated as a line item that could be deferred indefinitely." Her face paled. "That's not true. We've always loved you both equally." "No," I said, leaning forward. "You loved Devin and you expected me to understand. There's a difference." The confrontation was becoming emotional, but the emotion was all hers. Tears welled in her eyes, the familiar weapon of maternal guilt. But for the first time in my life, it had no effect on me. Just then my father, who must have been hovering near the entrance, walked over. He looked tired, older than his 60 years. He put a hand on my mother's shoulder. "Meredith," he said, his voice quiet but clear. She has a point. We weren't always fair." It was the first time I had ever heard him say it. The first time he had ever taken my side in anything. The admission, however tentative, hung in the air between us, a shocking crack in their united front. My mother looked at him, betrayed. Then she turned back to me, her expression crumbling into a desperate, ugly truth. "I always assumed you could handle it," she confessed, her voice cracking. "You are so strong, so independent. You didn't need us the way he did. Devin always needed more care. I thought you could handle being second." There it was. The entire toxic dynamic of our family laid bare in one pathetic sentence. I wasn't their daughter. I was their shock absorber. I was the strong one, so I was expected to bear the weight of their neglect quietly. I stood up, my chair scraping softly against the stone floor. I looked at my watch. "My massage is in 5 minutes," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. I picked up my room key from the table. My mother stared at me, her mouth agape, as if she couldn't comprehend that I was simply leaving. "You gave me silence every time I cried for fairness," I told her, my voice low. "Consider this trip my version of silence." The massage was glorious. An hour of hot stones and scented oils managed to undo knots I didn't even know I had. I walked out of the spa feeling lighter than I had in years, wrapped in a plush robe and a state of blissful detachment. I was heading back toward the pool when Lionel met me, a grim look on his face. "Trouble in paradise?" I asked, only half joking. "You could say that," he said, handing me a glass of iced water. "There was an incident on the beach about 30 minutes ago." He explained that while my parents were trying to rest by the Seabreeze Inn's sad little pool, Amara had decided to take the kids for a walk. They'd wandered down the public shoreline until they reached the edge of our resort's private beach, a pristine stretch of white sand dotted with cabanas and attended by staff. Ignoring the discreet signs, they'd marched right in. "Max and Mia started trying to commandeer another family's sandcastle toys," Leonel recounted, "having watched the whole thing from our balcony. It got loud. Guests were complaining. Security came over." "Oh, God! Did they make a scene?" "Security was incredibly polite," he said, "but firm. They explained it was a private area for guests only, and politely escorted them back to the public access point." Amara was livid. Of course she was. Entitlement was her native language. Being told no was a declaration of war. "It gets better," Lionel continued. "I took a walk down there a few minutes ago. She's gathered an audience by their motel pool, a few other disgruntled-looking families. She's holding court, painting you as the evil, snobby sister who is deliberately torturing her family." I sighed, the bliss from my massage evaporating. Let her. It's not like I'm running for mayor of the Seabreeze Inn. There's something else you should know, he said, his voice dropping. Your dad pulled me aside while it was happening. He looked ashamed. He told me that Devon and Amara were supposed to take him and your mum to Florida last year. They planned the whole thing, then cancelled 2 weeks before, saying they couldn't afford it after all. Your parents were devastated. The hypocrisy was so potent it almost made me laugh. They couldn't afford to take my parents on a modest vacation, but they felt entitled to a luxury one on my dime. Okay, I said, a new resolve hardening in my voice. Okay. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Samantha's name. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you're not calling to gloat while I'm stuck in a budget meeting, she said. Even better, I replied, a wide smile spreading across my face. How would you like to get on a plane tomorrow and join me for a long spa weekend? My treat. There was a beat of stunned silence. Are you serious? Completely. I have a suite with your name on it. I'll text you the flight details. After I hung up, Lionel shook his head. You're really leaning into the villain role, aren't you? Amara wants to paint me as a snob who excludes her family, I said. Fine. I'll be a snob who includes her friends. Later that evening, after a fantastic dinner Lionel and I had at a small French bistro in town, I was walking along the path that separated the resort from the public road. I needed a moment alone, the sea breeze cool on my skin. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Devon. His face was a thundercloud in the dim evening light. He stopped a few feet away from me, his hands shoved in his pockets. You think you're so clever, don't you? He said, his voice tight with resentment. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said coolly. This whole trip, humiliating Mom and Dad, making Amara and the kids feel like garbage. You're enjoying this. I'm enjoying the vacation I paid for, I corrected him. What you're feeling is just a side effect. He took a step closer, his jaw clenched. For a second I thought he might actually yell, might finally unleash the temper he'd always been allowed to have. But instead, his voice dropped to a low, cutting whisper. You know, I'm glad this is happening, he sneered. I'm glad Dad finally sees what you are. Devon's words echoed in my mind for the rest of the night. I'm glad Dad finally sees what you are. He thought my father's flicker of support was a condemnation of me, not of their decades of favouritism. The delusion was breathtaking. It only strengthened my resolve for the final act. Samantha's arrival the next day was a breath of fresh air. She stepped out of her private car, took one look at the resort, and let out a long, appreciative whistle. Okay, so when you said you were having family drama, I didn't realise the drama came with 5-star amenities. We spent a day and a half in a bubble of luxury, spa treatments, poolside cocktails, and her hilarious commentary on the texts I showed her from the family group chat. For our last night, I arranged the final dinner. Not at our resort, and not at some neutral third party. I booked a large table at the Seabreeze Inn's Tiki Lounge. The place was even more depressing than I'd imagined. It was a covered patio next to the murky pool, decorated with faded plastic leis and tiki torches that weren't lit. The air was thick with the scent of chlorine and bug spray. Lionel, Samantha and I arrived looking deliberately out of place. I wore a black silk jumpsuit, Lionel was in a linen blazer, and Samantha wore a chic cocktail dress. I placed a bottle of vintage Cabernet I had sent over from our resort's wine cellar in the centre of the sticky plastic table. The rest of the family was already there, looking rumpled and weary. My mother's eyes widened slightly at our attire, a flicker of resentment crossing her face before she smoothed it over with a strained smile. Dinner was a tense affair, punctuated by the kids whining and the sad tinny sound of steel drum music coming from a single speaker in the corner. As the plates were being cleared, my mother stood up, tapping her water glass with a fork. The sound was dull and anticlimactic. I just wanted to say a few words, she began, her voice overly bright, to thank Rosalind for this family vacation. It's been so wonderful to have everyone together, and while it might have had its little surprises, I know her heart was in the right place. Her generosity, bringing all of us here, is something we should all be grateful for. Every word was a passive-aggressive jab wrapped in a compliment. She was trying to reclaim the narrative, to paint me as the well-intentioned but misguided daughter, and them as the gracious, long-suffering family. I let her finish. I waited for the smattering of awkward applause to die down. Then I stood up. "Thank you, Mum," I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying easily across the patio. "I'm glad you brought up generosity, because I've been thinking about it a lot this week." I looked around the table, meeting each of their eyes. Devin was glaring at me. Amara was whispering something to him. My father was staring at his hands. For my entire life, I have been asked to be the generous one. I was expected to generously share my birthday gifts. I was expected to generously understand that there was no money for my college, but plenty for Devin's down payment. I was expected to generously accept being the second choice, the afterthought, the one who could handle it. I picked up the bottle of wine. This is $100 bottle of wine. I can buy it without thinking twice. Not because I didn't have the burden of children, Mom, but because I had the burden of paying for my own life every single step of the way. You didn't invest in me, so I learned to invest in myself. My mother's face was ashen. "This trip," I continued, my voice never wavering, "is a reflection of the life you gave me. The Mirador Azure is the life I built for myself. The Seabreeze Inn is the life you told me was good enough for me. You showed me I'd never be your favourite. I just made peace with it louder than you're used to hearing." The silence that followed was absolute. It was broken by a choked sob. My father had his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Devin shoved his chair back violently and stood up. Without a word, he turned and walked out of the tiki lounge, Amara scrambling to gather the kids and follow him. My mother just stared at me, her eyes wide with a horror that had finally broken through her denial. I looked at her, the woman who had demanded fairness, and then recoiled from its perfect, brutal reflection. "I did all this for you," I said softly, just for her to hear. "And as usual, you hated the gift because it wasn't wrapped in Devin. We didn't see them again." The next morning, Samantha, Leonel and I had a leisurely breakfast on the terrace before our private car arrived to take us to the airport. Our flight home was as peaceful as the one coming in. There was no triumphant celebration, just a quiet, shared understanding. The war was over. Back in our apartment, the silence was a comfort, not a void. The air was still, clean, and free of the cloying weight of resentment and unspoken history. I unpacked my suitcase, putting away the sundresses and swimsuits that felt like they belonged to a different world. The digital fallout began the next day. I noticed it when I was scrolling through my phone, a mindless habit. Devin's profile picture was gone from my feed. I searched his name. Nothing. He had unfollowed and blocked me. Amara had done the same. It was so predictably childish, a digital door slam that felt more like a relief than a punishment. My mother remained silent. No calls, no texts. It was a heavy, deliberate silence, the kind that is louder than shouting. I knew it was the only weapon she had left, and I was fine with it. I had lived in the shadow of her conditional approval my whole life. Its complete withdrawal felt like a final, necessary amputation. 2 days after we got back, a text message lit up my phone. It was from my father. The message was short, just 5 words. "I am sorry, Rosalind." "You were right!" I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. There was no justification, no excuse, just a simple, unvarnished admission. It wasn't a solution. It didn't erase 32 years of feeling invisible, but it was something. It was a crack of light in a door I thought was sealed shut forever. I didn't reply immediately. I wasn't sure what to say. For now, just knowing he'd sent it was enough. Leonel came into the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder as I looked out the window. "Was it worth it?" he asked softly. I thought about the question. I thought about my mother's stunned face, my brother's retreating back, my father's tears. The revenge hadn't magically healed the old wounds. The little girl who wanted her parents' approval was still in there somewhere, and she was still sad. But the anger, the hot, choking injustice that had fueled me for so long, was gone. In its place was a calm, quiet clarity. The scales finally felt balanced. It wasn't about being happy, I said, leaning back against him. It was about being heard. Later that week, I posted a photo from the trip. It was of Lionel and me standing on the balcony of our suite at the Mirador Azur, the ocean a brilliant blue behind us. We were both smiling, genuinely happy. I wrote a simple caption. Best vacation ever. Family is what you make of it. Karma doesn't always wear thunder and lightning. Sometimes it just books your hotel room.
I stepped off the plane from Italy with a heart full of stories and a camera roll bursting with content for my travel vlog. 2 weeks of exploring hidden trattorias and ancient villages had given me exactly what I needed for my next series. My name is Avery, and until today, I thought I had finally figured out how to balance my dream job with my marriage. The first sign something was wrong came when Eric didn't answer my texts after I landed. Usually, he'd send at least a quick, "Welcome back," or ask when to pick me up. Instead, I got radio silence and had to grab an Uber home. No big deal, I told myself. He was probably stuck in a meeting or something. The second red flag hit me when I saw his mother's car in our driveway. "Hello?" I called out, dragging my suitcase through the front door. The house felt different somehow, tense, like the air before a storm. I found them sitting in our living room like they were waiting for a funeral to start. Eric perched on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped together so tight his knuckles were white. His mother Lorraine sat next to him, ramrod straight in her designer pantsuit, lips pressed into that thin line I'd grown to hate over the years. "Welcome home, dear," Lorraine said, in that syrupy voice that always meant trouble was coming. Eric wouldn't look at me. "We need to talk, Avery." My stomach dropped. I'd seen enough movies to know nothing good ever followed those words. "What's going on?" "Your lifestyle," Lorraine began, gesturing vaguely at my travel-worn appearance. "It's becoming concerning." I let out a laugh that probably sounded more nervous than I intended. "My lifestyle? You mean my job? The one that's finally taking off?" "That's exactly what we mean." Eric finally looked up, and something in his eyes made me take a step back. "This isn't sustainable, Avery. The constant traveling, the irregular income, living out of a suitcase. It's not how a marriage is supposed to work." "Not how a marriage is supposed to work?" I echoed, my voice rising. "My channel just hit 500,000 subscribers. I'm making more now than I did in corporate marketing." Lorraine cleared her throat. "Money isn't everything, dear. What about starting a family? Putting down roots?" "We agreed to wait on kids," I said to Eric, ignoring his mother. "You said you supported this." "I supported a hobby," he replied, standing up. "But this has gone too far. I need stability, Avery. A real wife, not someone who's gone more than she's home." The word "real" hit me like a slap. I noticed then that there were papers on the coffee table. Legal papers. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "An ultimatum," Eric said quietly. "Either you give up the vlog and commit to building a real life here with me, or what?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Or we end this now, before we waste any more time." I picked up the papers with trembling hands. Divorce papers, already filled out with everything except my signature. "You did this while I was gone?" I looked between them, reality crashing down around me. "You waited until I was out of the country to plan this?" "We knew you wouldn't be reasonable if we tried to discuss it normally," Lorraine said, as if that made it better. I stood there, still in my travel clothes, jet-lagged and shell-shocked, looking at these two people who claimed to love me, plotting to strip away everything I'd built for myself. "I need time to think," I managed to say, backing toward the stairs. "I can't. I need time." "Don't take too long," Lorraine called after me. "Eric deserves an answer." I made it to our bedroom before the tears started, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry ones. As I sat on the edge of our bed, still clutching those papers, something shifted inside me. They thought they could force me to choose? Fine, but they weren't going to like the choice I made. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages to Mia. "You won't believe what just happened. Can I crash at your place tonight?" Mia's spare bedroom became my sanctuary that night. I sat cross-legged on her guest bed, surrounded by takeout containers while she paced the room, her creative director energy in full force as she processed my story. "So let me get this straight," she said, gesturing with a spring roll. "They ambushed you with divorce papers because you're too successful?" According to them, it's about stability. I stabbed at my pad thai. Eric says he wants a real wife. Oh, honey. Mia sat beside me. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Eric's face appeared on the screen. I'd been dodging his calls all evening, but something made me answer this time. Where are you? His voice was tight. Mother's worried sick. I almost laughed. Mother's worried? I'm the one who came home to an intervention. Just come home. We can talk about this rationally. Rationally? The word tasted bitter. Like how you rationally waited until I was out of the country to plan this with your mother? That's not fair. I've been trying to talk to you about this for months. No, you've been dropping hints about how my work isn't serious enough. There's a difference. Silence stretched between us. Then, I got a promotion. What? Senior partner. They announced it while you were gone. It means more responsibility, more stability. We could finally start that family mothers always. Stop. My hand tightened around the phone. Just stop. This isn't about your promotion or your mother's wants. This is about control. Don't be dramatic, Avery. I'm trying to build a future for us. No, you're trying to build the future you and your mother want. Did you even watch any of my Italy videos? More silence. Of course he hadn't. I have to go, I said. I'm working on editing my new content. See? This is exactly what I mean. You're always working on your little videos instead of. I hung up. Mia watched me carefully. You okay? I need my laptop. I was already pulling it out of my bag. Remember that amazing grandmother I met in Tuscany? The one who taught me her family's secret pasta recipe. Yeah? I'm posting that video tonight. Not next week like I planned. My fingers flew over the keyboard. With a special dedication. Avery. Mia's voice held a warning note. To all the women who were told their dreams weren't practical enough. I typed in the description. And to those who tried to clip their wings. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. The video had gone viral overnight, with comments pouring in from women sharing their own stories of being pressured to give up their passions for someone else's comfort. Then came the text from Eric. My colleagues saw your video. Was that really necessary? I was crafting a response when another message appeared, this one from Lorraine. You're embarrassing this family. Eric deserves better than your childish attention-seeking. My hands shook as I typed back. Family? You mean the one trying to force me to choose between my identity and your approval? We're trying to help you grow up, she replied. One day you'll thank us. I screenshot the exchange and sent it to Mia with the caption, watch me grow up and away from this toxicity. Later that afternoon, I sat in my favorite coffee shop, editing my next video when Jackson, my mentor in the vlogging world, slid into the seat across from me. Saw your Tuscany piece, he said, pushing a fresh latte toward me. Powerful stuff. You okay? Getting there. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. Did you know they had those papers ready before I even left for Italy? Jackson's eyebrows shot up. That's cold. Yeah. I took a sip of coffee. But you know what's colder? I just checked our joint account. Eric moved most of our savings to his personal account while I was gone too. Jesus. Jackson leaned back. What are you going to do? I opened my laptop, showing him the draft of my next video, a behind-the-scenes look at how I built my brand from scratch. I'm going to remind them that they're not the only ones who know how to plan ahead. The coffee shop's window reflected my smile, and for the first time since coming home, it didn't feel forced. They wanted to play hardball? Game on. I never meant to find the emails. I'd only logged into our shared computer to download some backup footage when a notification popped up from Eric's account. Usually, I'd ignore it, but the subject line caught my eye. Concerns about Avery. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was wrong. This was invasion of privacy. This was exactly what I needed to do. The email chain between Eric and his mother went back months. Before Italy. Before the ultimatum. Before everything. She's becoming more distant, Eric had written 3 months ago. Every time she leaves for these trips, she comes back different. More independent. Less willing to listen to reason. Lorraine's response made my stomach turn. That's why we need to act now, dear. Before she completely loses sight of her real responsibilities. I've spoken with Sarah at the firm. There's still an opening in the marketing department if we can convince her to give up this internet fantasy. They'd planned it all. The job, the intervention, everything. They'd even discussed ways to make my vlogging more difficult, accidentally deleting footage, scheduling family events during my editing time, guilt-tripping me about travel expenses despite my channel's revenue. I was still staring at the screen when my phone buzzed. Eric, coming home tonight? His voice was carefully neutral. Mother's making her pot roast. Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm meeting with my lawyer. Silence. Then, lawyer. Yes, to discuss the interesting emails I just found. The ones about sabotaging my career. You went through my emails? His voice rose. That's private. Private like plotting with your mother to destroy my business? Private like arranging a job for me without my knowledge. We were trying to help you. Help me. I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. By going behind my back? By treating me like a child who can't make her own decisions. You're being irrational. No, I'm being crystal clear. For the first time in our marriage, I'm seeing everything perfectly. I took a deep breath. I'm sending you a link to my latest video. You should watch it. Mother too. I hung up before he could respond and opened my editing software. The footage I'd been saving for next week would work perfectly for today instead. I'd filmed it in a tiny restaurant in Rome, interviewing a female chef who'd fought her entire family to follow her culinary dreams. 3 hours later, the video went live, breaking free, when family doesn't mean support. In the description, I included screenshots of select emails, carefully edited to protect private information, but clear enough to show the manipulation. My phone exploded immediately. First came Lorraine's text. Take that down immediately or you'll regret it. Then Eric, you've gone too far. Mother's crying. Finally, a message from an unknown number. Saw your video. I'm a producer with Travel Network. Let's talk. I screenshotted the producer's message and sent it to both Eric and Lorraine with one line. Funny how my internet fantasy keeps proving you wrong. Mia called moments later. Girl, you're trending. Have you seen the comments? I hadn't. I opened the video and felt tears well up as I read them. Hundreds of women sharing similar stories of family members trying to clip their wings, of partners who couldn't handle their success, of mothers-in-law who saw independence as a threat. I never wanted this fight, I told Mia. I just wanted to share the world with people. Sometimes the biggest fights find us when we're just trying to be ourselves, she replied. You coming to the studio tomorrow? Jackson's offering to help you film a follow-up. I glanced at the divorce papers still sitting in my bag, then at the producer's message on my phone. Yeah, I'll be there. I think it's time to show them exactly what happens when you try to cage someone who was born to fly. My laptop pinged with another email notification. Lorraine again, probably with more threats or guilt trips. I closed the browser without reading it. They'd had months to scheme and plot against me. Now it was my turn to write the story, and this time, I was making sure it had a different ending. The meeting with the Travel Network producer went better than I could have dreamed. Sitting in Jackson's studio, I stared at the contract in front of me, my hands shaking slightly as I read through the terms. They want to do a whole series? Mia paced behind me, practically vibrating with excitement. About women breaking free from traditional expectations around the world? 6 episodes to start, I confirmed, still processing it myself. Each featuring a different country and different stories of women who chose their dreams over society's demands. Jackson leaned against his editing desk. This is huge, Avery. Like, life-changing huge. My phone buzzed. Eric again. I'd been dodging his calls since the email expose, but this time I answered. What? Mother's in the hospital. My heart stuttered. What happened? Anxiety attack. After your little stunt with those emails went viral, her church group started asking questions. She couldn't handle the shame. The guilt hit hard, exactly as he intended. That's not fair, Eric. Fair? Was it fair to expose private family matters to the world? To humiliate us both for some internet fame? I looked at the contract on the table, then at my friends watching with concern. No, what wasn't fair was you two plotting behind my back to destroy my career. What wasn't fair was, She's asking for you, he interrupted. Says she needs to explain something. Something about her own mother. I caught me as I saw her subtle head shake of warning. I can't. I have a meeting. More important than family? You lost the right to play the family card when you chose your mother's happiness over your wife's. Silence stretched between us. Then, I saw the video. The one about the chef in Rome. You actually watched it? Yes. His voice softened. She reminded me of you. Passionate. Determined. A pause. Scared of disappointing everyone. My throat tightened. I'm not scared anymore. I know. That's what terrifies me. After we hung up, I stared at my phone until Jackson cleared his throat. You okay? They're trying to pull me back in, I said. Using guilt, using family, using everything they know about me. What are you going to do? I picked up the contract. I'm going to sign this. Then I'm going to visit my mother-in-law. Avery, Mia started, but I cut her off. Not because they guilt-tripped me, but because I need her to see something. An hour later, I walked into Lorraine's hospital room, laptop under my arm. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in the hospital gown. Eric wasn't there, probably at work, keeping up appearances. Come to finish what you started? Her voice was weak, but still carried that edge. No. I set up my laptop. I came to show you something. I pulled up the rough cut of my next video, interviews with my followers sharing their stories of breaking free. Women who started businesses in their 50s, who went back to school after divorce, who traveled the world solo after years of being told they couldn't. These are the lives you wanted to prevent, I said quietly. These are the dreams you tried to crush because they scared you. You don't understand. But I do, because they told me about the Lorraines in their lives too. The women who tried to keep them small because they never got the chance to be big themselves. Her face crumpled. My mother didn't let you pursue art school. I know. Eric told me once. Tears slid down her cheeks. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. No, I closed the laptop. You were trying to protect yourself from regret. But it's not too late, Lorraine. Not for either of us. I left the contract on her bedside table as I walked out. Let her see what her daughter-in-law was capable of. Let her understand what she'd tried to stop. My phone buzzed with a text from the producer. When can you start filming? I smiled as I typed back. How soon do you need me? Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's world. Sometimes it's about building your own so magnificently that they have to watch from the sidelines, knowing they tried to stop it from existing. The dinner was my idea. One last attempt at reconciliation, I told myself, though deep down I knew it was more about proving something. I'd spent the afternoon cooking a traditional Italian feast, recreating recipes I'd learned in Tuscany. The same recipes that had helped launch my channel's success. Eric arrived first, wearing the careful expression of a man walking into a minefield. Smells good. Thanks. I kept my focus on plating the osso buco. Your mother here yet? She's parking. Avery. He stepped closer. About the hospital visit. The doorbell cut him off. Lorraine swept in, designer handbag clutched like a shield. Well, isn't this quaint? I'd set the dining room table with my best dishes, candles flickering against the growing darkness outside. The travel network contract sat beside my plate and signed, but impossible to ignore. I made everything from scratch, I said, serving the food, including the recipes I learned from that grandmother in Florence. The one whose video you both refused to watch. Lorraine picked up her fork with practiced elegance. Dear, about that contract. Let's eat first, Eric interrupted. Can we just have one normal family dinner? Normal. The word tasted bitter. Like the normal life you planned for me behind my back? Avery, Lorraine's voice carried that familiar warning tone. We've apologized. What more do you want? Apologized? I set down my wine glass harder than intended. You had an anxiety attack and played the victim. Eric blamed me for humiliating you. Neither of you has actually apologized. Because there's nothing to apologize for, Eric snapped. We were trying to help you. Help me. I pulled out my phone, opening my analytics app. My channel has over 1 million subscribers now. The video about that Roman chef? It paid for this dinner. The series about breaking free from toxic expectations? It's funding my lawyer. Lorraine's fork clattered against her plate. Lawyer, did you think I wouldn't fight back? I turned to Eric. Did you really believe I'd just give up everything I've built because you and your mother decided it wasn't proper enough? We decided? Eric laughed, but it wasn't kind. You decided years ago that your internet fame was more important than our marriage. Internet fame? I stood up, hands shaking. I built a business. I created something meaningful. While you two were plotting to cage me in some corporate job, I was helping other women find their voice. And what about my voice? Eric stood too. What about what I wanted? What you wanted? I gestured at Lorraine. Or what she wanted for you. Don't you dare, Lorraine started, but I cut her off. No, I'm done being polite. I'm done pretending this is about family or stability or whatever excuse you're using this week. This is about control. This is about you being so scared of change that you'd rather destroy your son's marriage than let him be happy with someone who doesn't fit your mold. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Then Lorraine reached for her bag, pulling out a familiar document. The contract I'd left at the hospital. You want to know what I think about your success? She ripped the contract in half. I watched the pieces flutter to the table, something breaking and reforming inside me. Thank you. Thank you. Eric looked confused. Yes. I walked to my office, returning with another copy of the contract, this one already signed. Thank you for finally showing me who you really are. Both of you. What does that mean? Lorraine's voice wavered. It means I start filming next week. In Paris. I picked up the torn contract pieces. And when I get back, I won't be coming home. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Avery, wait. Eric reached for me, but I stepped back. I made tiramisu for dessert, I said, gathering my keys and phone. Enjoy it. Consider it a parting gift, proof that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well. I walked out of my house for the last time, leaving them with their cold osso buco and shattered expectations. In my car, I texted Mia, "It's done. Can you help me pack tomorrow?" Her response was immediate. Proud of you. Wine and boxes are ready whenever you are. I started the engine, watching the dining room lights through the window. Sometimes you have to burn bridges to stop yourself from crossing them again. The morning I planned to leave for Paris, I woke up to find my YouTube channel gone. Not just a video or two, the entire channel had vanished. 5 years of work, over 1 million subscribers, everything that proved I wasn't just playing at success, disappeared overnight. My hands shook as I called Jackson. Someone hacked me. Everything's gone. I'm on it, he said. But Avery, there's more. Check your email. The Travel Network's message was brief, due to concerns about recent controversies and channel instability. We regret to inform you that we must withdraw our offer. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric, Mother knows people in television. Maybe now you'll understand what real stability means. I sat on Mia's guest bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes, trying to breathe. They'd finally done it. They'd found a way to clip my wings. We can fight this, Mia said, pacing the room. Jackson knows cybersecurity people. We can prove. Prove what? My voice cracked. That my mother-in-law has connections? That my husband's firm probably handled the network's accounts? They made it look legitimate. Clean. My phone kept buzzing. Followers asking what happened. Collaborators wondering about planned projects. Each notification felt like another brick in the wall they were building around me. Then came Lorraine's call. Against my better judgment, I answered. Ready to be reasonable? Her voice dripped with false concern. Eric's willing to forget all this unpleasantness. The marketing position is still open. Did you enjoy it? My voice was eerily calm. Destroying something I built just because you couldn't control it? Oh, darling. We saved you from yourself. From this fantasy world you'd created. Real life isn't about gallivanting around the globe, pretending to be something you're not. The only pretending I did was trying to be the daughter-in-law you wanted. Come home, Avery. Stop this foolishness. I ended the call and turned to Mia. I need your camera. What? Your camera. And help me set up my phone to record. Understanding dawned in her eyes. They can take down your channel, but they can't stop me from starting over. I was already pulling out my laptop. Call Jackson. Tell him to bring his equipment. We're doing this live. An hour later, we had a makeshift studio set up in Mia's living room. 3 cameras, proper lighting, and a determination I hadn't felt since my first video. Going live in 3, 2. Jackson gave me the signal. Hi, I'm Avery Quinn, and this isn't my usual setup. This morning, I woke up to find my channel deleted. 5 years of work, gone. Why? Because I refused to give up my dreams to fit someone else's idea of success. My hands were steady now as I looked directly into the camera. To my mother-in-law, who thinks she's teaching me a lesson about stability, thank you. You've taught me that true stability comes from within, not from following someone else's rules. To my soon-to-be ex-husband, who chose control over love, thank you. You've shown me that sometimes losing everything is the first step to gaining something better. And to everyone watching, this is what starting over looks like. This is what they don't tell you about following your dreams. Sometimes people will try to stop you. Sometimes they'll succeed. But they can never take away your voice unless you let them. The viewer count kept climbing. Comments flooded in. Stories of similar experiences, offers of help, messages of support. Then came a comment that made my blood freeze. Lying about your family for views? Pathetic. Hope you're ready for legal consequences. Eric's law firm's official account. I stared at the threat, feeling the walls close in again. They could destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd built. They had the resources, the connections, the power. But as I looked at the growing support in the comments, at Mia and Jackson standing firmly beside me, I realized something. They could take away my platform, but they couldn't take away my story. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's refusing to be silenced. I looked back at the camera, straightened my shoulders, and smiled. So, who wants to hear about a little cafe in Paris I'll be visiting next week? The viewer count hit 100,000 and kept climbing. The Netflix email arrived 3 months into my Paris stay. Not just an offer, a full series deal. 6 episodes, international production, complete creative control. Everything Eric and Lorraine had tried to destroy was rising from the ashes, stronger than before. I hadn't expected them to show up at my Paris apartment. But there they were, standing in my doorway like ghosts from a life I'd left behind. Impressive view, Lorraine said, pushing past me into the sunlit space. The firm's been following your recovery with interest. Eric lingered by the door, looking uncomfortable in his tailored suit. We saw the Netflix announcement. Did you? I kept my voice neutral, though my hands itched to grab my phone and start recording. Funny how life works out sometimes. Darling, Lorraine settled onto my couch like she owned it. We've been thinking. Perhaps we were hasty in our approach. Hasty? I laughed, the sound echoing off the Parisian walls. You destroyed my channel. Threatened me with legal action. Tried to force me into submission. And look how well you've landed on your feet. She smiled, all teeth. Thanks to our motivation. Mother, Eric warned, but she waved him off. The family name still carries weight, she continued. We could help with the Netflix project. Open doors. Make introductions. I walked to my window, looking out at the Eiffel Tower in the distance. Why are you really here? The firm's struggling, Eric admitted quietly. Your story. It resonated with people. Clients are asking questions about how we handled things. So this isn't about reconciliation, I turned back to them. It's about damage control. It's about family, Lorraine insisted. About putting the past behind us and moving forward. Together. My phone buzzed, a reminder about today's shoot. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was supposed to be filming a segment about women reclaiming their power. You know what the biggest lesson of all this has been? I moved to my filming setup, adjusting the camera. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones most afraid of your success. What are you doing? Eric stepped forward. Creating content. I hit record. Tell me, Lorraine, why did you really come to Paris? To support me? Or because your son's firm is bleeding clients after trying to silence a woman for choosing her career over conformity? Turn that off, she snapped, mask cracking. No. I stood straighter. You wanted to be part of my story? Here's your chance. Tell my viewers why you thought destroying someone's dreams was an acceptable form of family love. The This is ridiculous. Eric moved toward the camera, but I blocked him. Touch my equipment and I'll add harassment to the documentary I'm making about toxic family dynamics. I'm sure Netflix will love that angle. Lorraine stood, composure finally shattering. You ungrateful. Grateful. I let my voice rise, knowing the camera caught every word. For what? For teaching me that true family supports instead of suppresses? For showing me that success is the best revenge? Thank you, truly. I couldn't have built this new life without your attempts to destroy my old one. Eric, Lorraine turned to her son. Are you going to let her speak to us this way? But Eric was staring at me, really seeing me maybe for the first time. You never needed our help, did you? No, I said softly. I only needed you to believe in me. Both of you. But you couldn't handle a version of me that didn't fit your mold. This isn't over. Lorraine grabbed her bag. Actually, it is. I gestured to the door. My crew will be here soon to film. Unless you'd like to stay and explain to them why you're here. They left without another word, but as the door closed, I heard Lorraine's sharp intake of breath. Through the window, I watched them hurry past the cafe where my camera crew was already setting up. I touched my phone, stopping the recording. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people witness their own toxicity, perfectly framed and in focus. 1 year later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium in New York, preparing to screen the final episode of my Netflix series. The show had exceeded everyone's expectations, becoming a rallying cry for women fighting to define success on their own terms. Mia sat in the front row, beaming, while Jackson filmed from the side, probably for his own documentary about independent creators. The energy in the room crackled with anticipation. Then I saw her slip in through the back door. Lorraine, looking smaller somehow, clutching a familiar leather-bound notebook I recognized from her college days. The art portfolio she'd never shown anyone. I began my introduction. A year ago, I thought losing everything meant the end of my story. Instead, it was just the beginning. The lights dimmed, and the episode began to play. Afterward, during the Q&A, a young woman stood up. What would you say to the people who tried to stop you? Before I could answer, another voice cut through the crowd. Lorraine had made her way to the microphone. I can answer that, she said, her voice wavering. Because I was one of them. The room went silent. My heart pounded as she opened her portfolio, pulling out a yellowed piece of paper. 40 years ago, I got accepted to art school in Paris. Her hands shook. My mother tore up the acceptance letter. Said proper women don't abandon their families for foolish dreams. She looked directly at me. I became the very thing I hated because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. I gripped the podium, unsure whether this was another manipulation or something real. The firm filed for bankruptcy last month, she continued. Eric's starting over at a smaller company. He's happier, actually. Away from my influence. She managed a small smile. Your success didn't destroy us, Avery. It freed us. After the event, I found her waiting by the exit, clutching her portfolio like a shield. These are good, I said, glancing at the sketches she'd finally shared. Really good. I'm taking classes now, she admitted. Local art studio. Baby steps. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that your revenge wasn't just about proving us wrong. It was about proving that it's never too late to be right. She handed me an envelope. I wrote this months ago, but never had the courage to send it. Later that night, in my hotel room, I opened her letter. Pages of confessions, regrets, and finally, understanding. The last line caught in my throat. Thank you for showing me that the dreams we bury don't die. They just wait for someone brave enough to dig them up again. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric. Saw your finale. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry it took losing you to find myself. I didn't respond, but I did open my laptop and start typing. Dear followers, let me tell you a story about revenge. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that rebuilds. The kind that shows others how to break free from their own cages. Mia called as I was finishing the post. You okay? That was intense with Lorraine. Yeah, I looked out at the New York skyline. You know what's funny? I spent so long trying to prove them wrong, I never considered that maybe what they needed was someone to prove it was okay to change. So what's next for the great Avery Quinn? I smiled, thinking of Lorraine's art portfolio, Eric's new start, and my own journey. I'm thinking of doing a series about late bloomers. People finding their passion after everyone told them it was too late. Revenge by inspiration? Mia laughed. Very you. No, I corrected her, watching the sun set over the city. Not revenge. Revolution. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about everyone finding their own path to freedom, even the ones who tried to clip your wings. Because in the end, the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, it's in proving to yourself that you were right all along.